victory. Visiting wounded soldiers in a Sicilian hospital, General George Patton told his diary that he had emoted out of admiration for their nobility of sacrifice. But in speaking of one badly wounded soldier, he warned himself. He was a horrid, bloody mess, and not good to look at, or I might develop personal feelings about sending men into battle. That would be fatal for a general. Patton claimed that leadership required abstraction of men's bodies, but that did not mean he didn't recognize or care for them as human beings. Still, many infantrymen complained that high command didn't give a damn about their misery. Infantry soldiers resented the disparity between their dirty foxholes and the tidy beds of their superiors. GI George Neal remembered sitting with his buddy at Bastogne in December 1944. The cold went through their bodies as they each lay in a fetal position and shivered. While, trying to find relief from the overwhelming discomfort, Neal promised his friend he would write a detailed account of this suffering after the war. The public and the rest of the army should know what this is really like. What was it really like? Answering that question is in one sense impossible. We can never really know how the war sounded or smelled, what misery felt like. War memoirs are notoriously subjective and often inaccurate, particularly those written several years after the war. And yet, what is remembered in the body is well remembered, as one critic has claimed. In the 1990s, Robert Conroy gathered testimonies of his company's engagement in the Battle of the Ardennes. He noticed that while memory of the facts of various battles had dimmed, the details with respect to record-breaking cold weather, inadequate clothing and equipment, body-weakening dysentery, frozen feet, horrific sounds of incoming shells and bullets snapping through nearby trees, hunger, bone-weary fatigue, were still sharp. It was just as if it all happened yesterday, wrote Conroy. I consider these images seared on the brain. While the personal testimony is often unreliable, sense memories are indelibly vivid. What we can recover are shared meanings about the sounds and smells of the battlefield, the taste of rations, the dirt, cold and wet of the front, war injuries and wounds, the sight of a corpse. How, for example, did soldiers use their senses to make sense of new forms of artillery? What did dirt signify in basic training, and how did that change in the wet and cold of the Italian mountains? Why did some soldiers consider it unmanly to be treated for an injury? How did cold injuries, such as trench foot, come to symbolize both endurance and betrayal? What kinds of wounds did men consider the best and worst to get, and why? Soldiers created a language of sense, meaning in order to make comprehensible, and hence to negotiate, the alien world into which they had been thrown. As one historian has put it, meaning comes to a great extent through the senses. How frontline soldiers understood their bodies, as well as the dirty, dead, and wounded bodies around them, shaped their experience of the war. Despite stark differences of ideology, language, and culture, such meanings showed remarkable consistency among soldiers of different armies. If misery transcended national barriers, so did the meanings made of misery. What follows is a loosely structured set of essays that aim to recover these shared meanings. Together, they compose a field of historical knowledge, a somatic history of war. The enormity of the conflict demands a limited focus. Thus, this book attends to Europe during the last 2 years of battle during World War II. In that place and time, 3 campaigns left high water marks for infantry misery. The 1943 to 1944 winter campaign in the Italian mountains, the summer 19